You're going to need a little over 22 pounds to be crowned champion. Let's find out what it's going to weigh. 23:38, Jason Przekurat, National Walleye Tour Champion. Jason, get right up front there, grab a hold of that trophy, stand straight up there, buddy, hoist it high. Walleye World, that's your National Walleye Tour Champion in 2020, Jason Przekurat.
I'm 2020 National Walleye Tour Champion Jason Przekurat from Stevens Point, Wisconsin. Stevens Point is located right in the middle of Wisconsin, central Wisconsin, and right on the beautiful shores of the Wisconsin River, right here where I grew up. I was fortunate enough growing up on a man-made pond by our house. That's kind of how I got my fishing bug, if you want to say, but most of my childhood was right here on the shores of the Wisconsin River. Riding the bike down to the bank, throwing jigs for walleyes, especially in the spring, and learned a lot right here on this little river system, and basically got my tournament career started in 1995. Was my first tournament as an amateur, and I just wanted to learn more about walleye fishing, and signed up for the tournament on Mille Lacs Lake in Minnesota. And went there just to learn more about walleyes, and got a little bit lucky. I took second place in that event as an amateur, and you know, I fished that entire season then as an amateur just to keep learning. And the following years, when I really jumped into the tournament world, I bought a bigger boat and ended up fishing the Masters walleye circuit. And it took me a few years to realize that it was a little bit harder to catch walleyes when you're actually driving the boat. And probably about 2 or 3 years into that team circuit, finally qualified for my first championship, and got real fortunate and ended up winning that one. I won that one in 2000, and that was the year I signed my first contract with Ranger Boats, and quickly jumped into the Pro-Am circuits. Back then it was the RCL Tour, and had a lot of success early on in that tour. Won Angler of the Year in 2003. The RCL turned into what they call the FLW Walleye Tour. Continued to fish all those events, and kept having pretty good success, learning more about walleye fishing. In 2007, won the Angler of the Year in that tour. Also won a big qualifying event on the Mississippi that same year, and that was the year I decided to jump into fishing full time. That was in 2007, and I've been fishing full time ever since. And 2016 is when I really accomplished my main goal, and that was to win a Pro-Am championship. I did that in Lake Oahe in Mobridge, South Dakota, and really elevated my career to the upper levels, I should say, and had a lot of good titles. And then of course you bring us to 2020 and this season, and just got done winning this beauty right here, the National Walleye Tour Championship for the second time. I'm actually the only guy to do that now, so it's a real small list of anglers, but you know, it all started right here on the Wisconsin River system, learning how to catch walleyes, and that's my career in a nutshell. You know, I've been asked a lot since I won this title of, you know, how does it rank compared to the other ones, and I'll be honest with you, it's right up there at the top, because it's been a long career, 25 years of doing this, and to win it once is pretty cool, but the second time, you know, it shows me that I'm still capable. I'm 50 years old now, and still got quite a few good years ahead of me, knowing that I can still win these big titles. And just talking about Lake Erie and that championship, to give you an idea of how it all went down, it was one of them events where I knew it was going to be fun going into it, because you're on Lake Erie, it's just packed full of walleyes, and we were going to catch a bunch. I knew that going in, but the whole deal was trying to find where the biggest fish were in that system, and realized real quick that the biggest fish out there were still way too far to the east, way out of reach by boat. And once I figured that out, it was then, try and figure out where these schools were near takeoff, within 20 miles, and find out how big those schools were. And I found a big school right away early in practice, and it was probably a 2 square mile area. and then try and figure out how big the fish were in that school. And there's so many 3 to 4 pounders in there right now that we needed to find some fish over 5 pounds. And I was catching them. I was getting them pretty decent in practice. I was averaging about 3 fish over 5 pounds per every 20 fish caught. So I thought that was a pretty good ratio, and basically went into that tournament fishing that huge school, and started catching them fairly quickly, and started upgrading that first day, and came in with 23 pounds and sat in 11th place, which was pretty decent. Never got that big bite. I think I had a 5.8 was my biggest, but that was a good start. And then day 2 we got canceled due to wind. So anytime you have wind and a cancellation, that's going to change up the whole playing field. It's going to move water around. It's going to dirty some water up. It's going to clean some water up, and that's what happened. I went back out after our cancellation on day 2 and started in that same area, which was about 18 miles offshore. And after a front, I usually fish low and slow. That's kind of the deal. Is fish are off of that big blow, and they're not going to really eat because they just ate the day before. And I started fishing low and slow, and I caught them right away. And I got that kicker fish that I needed on my first pass. It was like a 7.5 pounder, and that was a huge one for that event. And I knew once I caught that one that I needed to get some fish to go with it. And that's what I did. I just kept catching them throughout the day, and came in with over 26 pounds. Moved up from 11th to 1st, and then right where I want to be. And then day 3 came around, the final day of the event. Top 10 were out fishing, and the goal was to go back out to where I caught them, obviously in my number 1 area, but the wind was blowing way too hard to get out there. I called an audible right off the get-go. I went out about 5 miles, and I said, no, I'm not going to be able to get to my fish. And I pulled off to another school that I had been checking every day on my way back in. And the first pass, bang, 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 the fish were there right away. I caught a 4, caught another 4, and I caught a 5.11, which was another kicker in this event. And knew that I didn't need to make that long trek out to the Canadian border, and stayed in that same area generally most of the day, and just started picking them off one at a time. And it all came down to that final fish. About a half hour left, I caught a 4.4, which upgraded my bag by about a half a pound. And I knew I was going to be close at that point. And when I came to the weigh-ins to see what everybody kind of had, I was doing the math in my head, and I knew I was going to be close. But when I finally put the fish on the scales, and Chip said I needed 22 pounds and change to win it, and ended up weighing 23 and won by that half a pound, it all kind of sank in, when you finally get to hoist that trophy and know that you did what you wanted to do. It was an awesome week. So that was kind of a wrap-up of the 2020 championship and how I got it done there. Like I said before, I signed my first contract with Ranger Boats in 2000 when I won the MWC championship, and so I've been with them for 21 years. I've owned 21 different Rangers, and I can honestly say that out of all 21, this one is my favorite. I run a 621 FS Pro, and what's my favorite part about it? There's so many things I could tell you. I mean, from the fishability to the storage to the ride, but number 1 for me is safety. I've got a family with 2 kids, and knowing when we go out on these big waters and the Great Lakes and fishing these massive waves, knowing that my boat is, it's Coast Guard approved, it's not going to sink, it's got the floatability, the upright stability, and it's just a peace of mind knowing that I can go out any day in any kind of conditions and know that I'm going to get back to the dock safely. So, being with Ranger that long and running all their different models and boats over the years, this is by far my favorite. Some advice I could give to young anglers, young walleye anglers out there to pursue a career in this walleye tournament fishing is really start out by making a game plan. When I did it, it was a 3-year plan right off the get-go to try and get to the next step and move up the ladder and accomplish some things in the tournament world. But make small game plans, 3 to 5 year game plans, and work hard at it. I mean, nothing comes easy in this sport, for sure. I've been doing this for 25 years and 13 years full time. But you need to be driven, you need to be hardworking, Anytime you have, you know, free moments to go fishing, you can't substitute time on the water. That is number one. Learning how to catch walleyes on everything. You can't be just good at one thing. You can't be a good jig fisherman and not a good troller. You can't not know how to pull lead core or fish open water on the Great Lakes. You need to do it all. So spend as much time in the water as you possibly can, learning all the techniques. Don't worry about sponsorships. That'll come. If you're a good fisherman and you start working your way up that leaderboard, tournament after tournament after tournament, the sponsors will take notice. So work hard both on and off the water, learn the trade, learn every technique known to man, and you've got as good a chance as I did, you know, going through the tournament world. So that's the advice I can give to all you young anglers out there.